Hi, Ismail.
Hello, Ashia. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm
Joining
fine.
us
Thank you.
from New York City,
Yeah, New York City, the Big Apple.
the big up, the city that
Uh,
never sleeps, right?
it's been sleeping for about a year, but it's starting to wake up again. Hopefully, hopefully.
I am so excited to start this series with you,
Mhm.
Ismail.
And I too. I'm happy
We've
to be
been
here too. Yeah.
we've been friends for over a couple of years, right? And I
Hmm.
think we bonded over this forgotten histories and forgotten cultures,
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
right?
yeah. Share a lot of interests. Yeah.
Let me introduce you to the viewers,
Okay.
because for them you're an exotic personality. So
All right. Okay, there it is. Shoes on the other foot.
okay. Ismail is a musician, storyteller, and author whose interest is in the mythologies and legendary personalities of the past as they relate to actual history. Right, Ismail?
That's right. That's me.
You seek to understand and explain human behavior and social development through the ages by
Hmm.
analyzing the oral traditions, texts, and
Hmm.
commonly held beliefs
Hmm.
that various cultures have created or adopted over time,
Hmm.
whether from the folk, literary, historical, or religious traditions.
Hmm.
In your research, you focus on the more forgotten and ignored narratives of societies, such as lost religions, forgotten individuals, and
Hmm.
movements, something that even I'm doing with the heretic traditions of Islam.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm very much interested in the changing role of gender in various past civilizations. So, that is a topic we'll really be discussing.
Mhm,
And the ongoing trade and cultural exchange that has indeed created various societies.
mhm.
Studying the past, according to you, Ismail, sheds light on the questions of who and why we are in our own time. You're a performer of folk music from several predominantly Mediterranean and West Asian cultures. You play the accordion. I've seen the video.
Accordion.
Yeah,
I play saz. It's a
right.
Turkish type lute. I play a number of instruments. Yeah.
You've collected various instruments over the years and you perform them when reciting an epic tale or when playing with other musicians.
Hmm. Hmm.
Ismail, it's your belief that our collective cultural and historical past is who we have become. And knowing from whence we came, what the past looked like, sounded like, felt like, and tasted like, is the
Hmm.
key to understanding one another,
That's right. Hmm.
right? It
That's
was a
right.
wonderful biography, wonderful philosophy to read, Ismail. I'm a fan, I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Of course, I had. We have to include the taste in the thing because I tell a lot about a culture by tasting
Right.
it, by eating in restaurants. Yeah, you can. For
I hope
sure.
you come to India as soon as the
I
pandemic
would
is
love
over.
to. I love to. I would love to. That's for sure. I would love to visit India one day. That's for sure. Beautiful place.
All right, we're going to start the first segment, which is focused on ancient epics, tales, and narratives.
Mhm.
Right now, I have partly answered the question, why are ancient mythologies, tales, and legends, as well as lost spiritual narratives, important and
Mhm.
pertinent for us today? But I want you to elaborate on this. Why are they important today?
The ancient epics and the mythologies and these scriptures and texts were all that which was written down and became important to people, right? So they the concepts of good versus evil, the anxiety, vanity, greed, love, fear, all these things are common to all human beings. Everyone experiences them, every being, and so do some animals as well, right? So it's very natural that we have these common concerns. Um, Ancient people, prehistoric people, going back before the founding of civilization, which is what 5,000 to 6,000 years before that, sat around and told stories about their experiences. They explained them, and some experiences and events were so powerful that people retell them, and it became an art. And storytelling is an ancient art, as is music. The people would clap hands, they play primitive instruments that they created for this purpose. They didn't have to settle in civilization to do this. They were still hunter gatherers when they were telling stories. When civilization came around, many of these ancient tales, there had to be, literally hundreds of thousands of them by then. When the Sumerians supposedly started the first civilization, they may have been ones before that, but as far as we know, recorded history says Sumer in Iraq, and they wrote these things down. So many of these ancient civilizations that we know of in the past 5,000 or so years, when they learned how to write and they started literacy, they wanted to collect these tales and they wrote them down. And these tales are epic stories. Some of them are just simple short stories. Some of them actually became part of our religious scriptures. Any religious scripture you pick up is got a lot of stories in it, a lot of ancient stories, sometimes outnumbering the actual event of the religion's founding itself. You can look in the Bible. The Bible contains a lot of ancient pre-Abrahamic stories. The Quran is full of ancient stories, and so any of these books have that in them. If you study if you study Hinduism or the Dharmic way, some people like to call it, or any of those types of religions from that culture, they have so many books. They have literally more books than anyone else. I mean, and the books were written down at the time when their ancient civilization came to be. The Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and in these are stories of events and actions, and all of these stories reflect the human experience, the human seeking, the human doing something. If you study Arjuna, right, the story of Arjuna, he has relations with Krishna, and he actually is a human being who is, on the path, seeking the path, and he makes a lot of mistakes. He has all of the human things we all have. He's greedy. He's a womanizer a little bit. Sorry to say that he is. He has a lot of wives, but he learns from them too. And that's what we have to learn from that. So I think the mythologies, even though today everything has got to be push button and technology, there is something to be said in the personal relationship of a person telling a story and a group of people to actually experience it. And the art that goes with it, the music and the acting out that goes with that. There's something to be said that you really can't get from pressing, a remote and seeing on television. Let me see that again. It's not quite the same thing. So I feel that it's very important for modern society to look back into their roots. And the way we think now is the way they thought 50,000 years ago. A lot of things have not changed. Our way, our methods, our methodology has changed. The way we approach things have changed because of technology and understanding. But the basics, love, fear, anxiety, they're still with us. They're still with us. How do we deal with that? Let's see what our ancestors had to say about it. I think that's important. That's why I do what I'm doing.
So the next question is related to this. What can we in our digital age, where every desire of ours must be fulfilled in a technological instant, and what can we learn from developing the patience to hear, read, or study tales from antiquity? And what can we gain from such tales? You partly answered that, but as you said, this is the instant age,
Right.
I'm a teacher. I see it in schools also. Children are very impatient. But I was lucky growing in the 80s decade, and we had these comics, at that time there was not much of technology. So this effort of a team of people very dedicated to drawing out those, comics and graphic novels, and it's known as the Amar Chitra Katha, very, very popular in India. And the founder died recently, unfortunately. But we've grown up with these mythological tales, and we were very patient, waiting for the postman to come and deliver it, and eventually waiting for the next issue, and really cherishing our copies. But today, I noticed that even though there is, the television has captured most of them, there's a whole lot of industry which has come up, putting these tales to the screen. Children don't have the patience of sitting and learning.
They don't. They don't. That's true. That's very true. And that goes on, if we can expand on this. What I find today also, even here in New York, in the United States, is the thing. And here is like the center of, the technological culture. I'm sure, and it's all over the place. It's not just here. I mean, I'd be ignorant to say that, because anywhere. I mean, a shepherd in Mongolia, a fisherman in the Amazon jungle, could has, if they have a cell phone, an iPhone, they can contact him. So That's a good thing. I have no argument with that. It's great that we're all connected, and that's wonderful. But the other side of it is that we're too dependent on it. I sit in front of my TV with my wife at night, and I'm drinking my evening coffee, while she's drinking her tea, and I have, a remote. I have a cell phone. She has her cell phone. She's got two cell phones, one for work. One, we have this, we have that, we have the cable. I've got all these things in front of me. I mean, I never seen so many of these. These items on a Star Trek movies. It's amazing. And I'm thinking to myself sometimes, all of this, and are we really, really getting any kind of essence or the gist of a story just by watching it? And I really don't think that we are. That's the problem. It becomes in itself, technology in itself becomes a means. It becomes an end. And it's a problem. I don't think we're just getting entertainment. It's like super stimulation. We're not taking in the essence of what the story means. We're not learning about characters. We're just seeing them, and the result is that the film industry is kind of cheap. It's kind of cheap. It doesn't represent people. They're trying to make them so much like us today, even characters who lived 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. And it's just absurd when you think about it. That's not the way to approach it, in my opinion. The way to really try to understand the character is see them in their place, in their time, and how does that apply to what do I share now? This person has a fear. I have a fear. This person has anxiety. This person loves beauty. This person wants to destroy it. Why? And that's what's important with that. And this instant gratification is definitely a problem. Even in the way of knowledge, in our time, if I may say, we had to go to the library, we had to open up books, we had to have 6 of them around, we did our studies, right? Now you just go on and there's Wikipedia, and again, it's wonderful to get that, that's great. But where's the detail and where's the essence of it? And people just go on. I see a lot of young people do it all the time. They discuss with me, and they go on their iPhone or on their computer, and they say, well, look what this says. Look what that says. Yes, but there's more to it than just that. This is an accepted fact, but what about the realm of possibility and imagination? I always think of one of the scholars I read and studied was G.S. Mead, George Robert Stowe Mead, his name was, and he's from England. And he said this, and this I always found, I'm going to read it. The pasts that succeed one another can never be prophesied from one another. Nothing is lost, but that which arrives is novel, giving a continually new past. So we learn something, we establish it, and that's it, and historians have done that in the past too. But there's always a place for something new to come along, a new discovery, a new way of looking at things. And it's up to the people, it's not up to the technology. But the problem is that our dependence on this technology, it's written, there it is, and it's done. This was supposed to be a break from that established law, established books, and scriptures and epics were composed, religious scriptures were composed at a time when 90% of the people were illiterate, right? They're illiterate. They couldn't read and decide for themselves. Now we all can, and we have this technology to share, and yet I'm still seeing the same old methodology, the same way of approaching knowledge. It says it in the book, and that has not changed. That has not changed. And I don't think that the dependence on technology has helped that or assisted that or furthered the progress that. The technology is great. It's wonderful. For me, it's wonderful. But I stop and think about the days that I had to sit there and go through all the books and grab this book. Sorry, excuse me, I need that book. That kind of thing. I miss that. And it's I'll never give that up. That's for sure.
I come from a developing world, and I am seeing the progress that the effect that technology is having on certain areas and regions and territory who are still catching up with the culture of the world. I mean, places like Afghanistan, right? Places like Somalia, places like Nigeria. Uh, it's still good versus evil. It's always been good versus. You pick up ancient epics, or you pick up the stories of today, even the movies that children watch, even there are superhero movies, it's always good versus evil. So my take is slightly different, that the technology is helping bring out those stories.
Mhm.
I remember seeing John Travolta's movie Michael, in which he's come down to earth and he has wings, and I was very surprised. My
Yeah.
late husband was alive, and I said, "How can they do this? I mean, this is blasphemy." And he said, "This culture is very open. They can explore it and imagine an archangel coming down to earth and smoking and drinking and doing everything that a human does." Uh,
Right, right.
the Muslim world has just started adapting to this. I see that there are women superheroes now, even if they're wearing a hijab.
Hmm.
And somehow the women there in Afghanistan, they are trying to express their repression
Hmm.
and making it into stories where
Hmm.
the superhero girl, she has superpowers, and fighting
Hmm.
the Taliban with all her superpowers and
Hmm.
everything. So these graphic novels coming up, you've
Hmm.
read Marjani Satrapi's Persepolis, one of the best examples of bringing the story out visually.
Right, right,
So
right,
for me, I think it's still there. It might be a difference between certain, developed countries which are racing
right,
ahead with the
right, right, right.
technology, and the
Hmm.
ones who are catching up. Because I am always going to, be speaking for the cultures which are left behind, the cultures which have been
Right,
repressed, which
right,
haven't
right.
got any time for development and all. Technology
Mhm.
has been very useful for them.
Mhm. Oh,
And
I agree with you on that,
right,
and maybe I fall into that category too because I'm new to the internet. I mean, I'm only on the since it wasn't until 2007 that I got myself a computer, so that was quite late in life. So I'm new to this, so it's but my concern is that it's the misuse of it, the human misuse of it. The dependence on it, and that comes. But you make a very good point. That's true in these
isn't it?
developing countries, absolutely
My
because
son
they
is.
still have that mentality. That's
Isn't it?
the old way of doing things.
My son is exploring Norse mythology. He's exploring the Indic mythologies, and he realized the one thing. We had this discussion, and he said, it's always about good versus evil.
Yeah,
And even today, the mediocre, the corrupt is awarded, and we see that in epic tales too. For some time, they are having a blast. They're having a good time, but eventually, the good prevails over evil,
right, right,
right?
right, right,
so
right.
so so I think children relate to it, and they can, especially abusive children, find a lot of comfort in mythologies and ancient epics.
Mhm.
I work with children, and some of them come from dysfunctional families, and they take a lot of comfort from marginalized characters like Eklavya, one of the most the characters in the Mahabharata, who
Right, right, right,
a lot of injustice done to him, or for that matter,
right.
Karna, right?
Uh-huh,
The
uh-huh.
illegitimate son of Kunti. So they
Right,
take a
right.
lot of comfort in such characters, knowing that they had a lot of odds to overcome, and yet they prevailed in their own way, even if they
Mhm,
were
mhm,
siding with the wrong side,
mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, from the Mahabharata, I mean, it's the longest epic ever written. It's the longest of all of them. It's the longest one that's been around. It goes on. When I know that in villages in India, when they sit in front of a TV and they watch it, it goes on. They're there for 2 weeks. They're watching the thing, and they come every night to sip tea and watch it. Um, but the interesting thing is that there's so many characters and so many subjects and so many um, aspects of life are dealt with, and you have different characters. And one of the things I find interesting about that and other Indian epics is that there's this concept of well, in Hinduism, it's called Shakti, which is the feminine power, right? The feminine. It's interesting because the Rig Veda actually says that everything was originally feminine, which in the scientific world and biological world, yes, women create life, they bring forth life. So, and it's interesting, and throughout you see these characters. Like there's a character in Chitrangada or Chitrangada, I don't know how you pronounce. Depends where you come from in India, and she is this powerful character who actually teaches Arjun, you know, really teaches him nobility and falls in love with him, and then he leaves her. It's interesting in the book that she comes in and she's forgotten, and that may be an aspect of patriarchal society. But the fact that she's in there and mentioned, in this patriarchal society is fascinating. And Tagore, the Bengali poet Tagore, wrote a play about her. I was inspired too by, and I wrote a short story about her as well. And it's my take on it, of course. And Tagore, really gives her a different look and a new look, like kind of like what he saw her as. and he really gives her the power that's really deserving of a person like that. Draupadi's another one. There are many, and this has always been an interesting aspect of Indian culture, that you've always had women rising up, various forms, whether it's Indira Gandhi as a president or as a prime minister, and even in the form of Fulan
Rani
Devi.
Rani
Yeah,
Jhansi, she's
Rani
very
Jhansi
popular.
was another one.
Right?
You many,
Right?
and then, like I said, Fulan Devi, who was, I wouldn't want to be her victim, but having said that, I mean, they all looked at the power of these
Shakti.
Durga, Kali, and this sense of Shakti, which is very, very fascinating. It's a dichotomy in India, and they see it in other cultures as well. That somehow there must have been a time in prehistory when women did wield more power, or were certainly more respected.
Well, archaeologically, you found statues all over the world. Venus of Willendorf, right? They used to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They used
yeah,
to respect them,
matriarchal. Yeah, yeah,
right? They would
You see
worship
it
them.
in Sumer too. The earliest poet that's recorded is in Hindwana, and she was a priestess of the temple, and she wrote basically these worships and adorations of the goddess Ishtar, or Inanna as they called her at that time, who was a powerful goddess. She wasn't this nice, sweet, angelic type. She was, like Durga. She was
Yeah.
Kali. She was tough. But having said that, in Hindwana, in her poetry, it's been discerned that or understood that she's complaining about the takeover of the temple by the bearded male priests. She complains about that. She's losing her position. She says that they bring me offers, and they bring me knives. They bring me daggers to my heart. So you
Right.
can see this kind of change between the matriarchal sense and the patriarchal sense. It was patriarchal at the time too, but she was losing her power and a position. And it's interesting, and that's like what, 3,000 BC, something like that. So
I'm impressed with your
yeah.
knowledge. I mean, you've really, really read the epics, Ismail.
They're interesting. I've always was fascinated by them and the stories that are in them, and that's why I think it's very important to maintain them and teach them. And of course, what I do, I'm creating now, in the process of creating online storybooks. I use photography, and I tell the story. I recite the epic in like this kind of Shakespearean style English. I use a lot of thous and these, but I also use you and me, because young people don't know what thou is. A lot of them know thine. What's thine? And so, the language is beautiful, though. I love the way it sounds. And you use that, and you try. Of course, the epic can't be 7 days long. It's got to be an hour. But I think by doing that and bringing it back, and developing an interest in this, I think it's important for the youth to just remember that. With the advance of technology, and I have no problem with it whatsoever. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this now if it wasn't for this technology, for media, and for this social media. It wouldn't be happening. But having said that, to keep that in mind. And I guess maybe I'm holding on to something from my own youth and my own age. I don't know. But it's something that needs to be preserved, I think. And it's been around for thousands of years, and I just want to see at least the interest, be maintained in it, a knowledge of it. You don't have to live in it. I live in it. I'm not asking anybody to swim in this ocean with me. But by the same token, it's good to know that, there are people who do take a dip in the ocean once in a while.
Yeah, you'll be interested that there is some kind of revisionism going on. Indian authors have started writing the epics, like from the Ramayana from Sita's point of view, right? The
Yeah,
Mahabharata
yeah,
from
yeah.
Draupadi's point of view.
That's right.
Even the
Yes,
Bible,
exactly.
Mary Magdalene's Bible. I mean, Dan Brown
Right,
is
right,
huge
right,
in India, right?
right. Yeah,
I hope somebody does something. I believe Aisha is coming up, and Destiny Hazelton has, brought her to the forefront. And I would
right.
love something from Fatima's point of view in Islam, right?
Absolutely,
I would love
absolutely.
that. She's the marginalized daughter, and but hopefully one day we'll have that kind of thing. But I thought, what you said, that you want to bring it to the current generation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I am all
Mhm.
for these revisionist histories, and even Penelope, for that matter, from
That's right.
Odysseus, right?
That's
Her
right.
point
Yes.
of view, and even Buddha is revered so much, but then from the point of view of his wife, whom he did abandon eventually,
Mhm.
to go
Right.
to the
Exactly.
forest. So we
Yeah.
would love these point of views to come out, right? You
Mhm.
agree?
And you need to call it what it is. Again, I don't mean to insult people if I say, that I think like Arjuna, had a way with women, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
And And the Mahabharata, to be fair, I mean, acknowledges that,
It is.
just like in the Old Testament, I mean, David and Solomon,
Yes.
they're revered in Christianity and Islam as well. But David had his faults. David had his faults. He had a predilection for women too. He just did, and you need to call it on that, and it's, if you dare say that, sometimes people get insulted, but if the religious scripture acknowledges it, if the literature acknowledges it,
Yeah.
what's so wrong in saying that? And I'm not going to go further there. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay, these tales served many a purpose for so many centuries, right? Yet they are in the danger of becoming forgotten. What can we do to preserve them? What are the avenues
Um,
of doing?
well, I think in schools, I think school curriculums should teach about them, have at least a class about it, not the entire class, or in the literature class. If you're in the United States or in England, English class, or in India, I guess they study English too sometimes. So
They
if you're
do.
studying English, you need to study aspects of English literature, right? So if you're studying in school in general, there should be some kind of an ancient social culture class that you study aspects of the culture, such as, let me use India as an example. And they would do that, and they can really explore, you know, make the Mahabharata fun. I'm sure that there are many young Indian, teenagers, boys and girls,
Yes.
who really couldn't care about that. It's like, there's other things they want in life. They want their iPhone. They want to talk to their friends in London and in Paris and New York, and that's fine. But, make it fun. The problem has been, like a lot of religious teaching in the world, it's too serious. It's too serious. It should be fun.
Fun.
It should be serious, but it should be fun too. It's not like, okay, change yourself now. You're in a church or a mosque or a temple. You have to stop that. This is serious stuff. And you breathed once too much. You got to be punished. No, it shouldn't be like that. People are gonna walk away. They're gonna run away from religion, right?
Yeah.
So
And
the
it's
same thing with
happening.
the mythology. This is our ancient epic. You have to respect it. Yeah. No, don't tell them. Just listen to this. Did you have a bad day yesterday? Did this thing happen to you? Look what happened to Draupadi. Look what happened to Achilles. Look what happened to Siegfried in the Germanic sagas. Look what happened here. Look what happened to Bahram Ghor in the Shahnameh in the Persian Book of Kings. Look at this, the tale of Genji in Japan, and try to relate to those, because these are old analysis. This is an old analyzation of human behavior, and that was thousands of years ago, and it's
Oedipus.
still,
Oedipus.
yeah, it didn't change. It didn't change. The sword of Damocles above his head, or the King Midas who touched. I want gold, and he touched everything, and it turned to gold. Even his daughter turned to gold. It's like, well, it's careful what you wish for. There's a lot of lessons in there, and it's good to read them and keep them, and they're part of our. Whether it's from India or from Norway or from the Balkans or from the Middle East or from South America or the Pacific Islands, it's all part of our common humanity, because they're experiences that we all share,
Sure.
regardless of who we are, where we are. We're made by our culture, by our geography, our surroundings. I get that. But the inner feelings, the emotions, our reactions are universal. Those are universal things. And the key to understanding them are in the ancient myths, in the ancient poetry, in the ancient epics. No question. And that's why they created epics. They're long, long tales that have a lot of, they compiled everything into one long epic tale, epic story. And there's so many things you can find in these epics. Just like in a religious book, it deals with different aspects of life and spirituality. So the epics deal with various aspects of our experience. You can find everything. Again, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, you can open it up, and anything that you experience in life now, you can find in there, in the context of their time and place, but nonetheless, it's there. The insecurity or the sureness or any of that, the story of Buddha. He was a king, right? And he just decided, I want to go out and seek enlightenment. And he sees death, and he sees sickness, and he didn't know this stuff. He was so protected in his little, his own castle there. Oh, we want to protect you from well, that was not good, he thought. And he went out and he saw something else, and he came back, and I've achieved enlightenment. So that's, That's something that alone is a story of heroism, and we can all become that kind of a character. So that's important. Joseph Campbell said it best. You know, he says, "Follow your bliss," right? He said, "Follow your bliss," and he kind of said that we're all heroes. We're all Arjunas. We're all Achilles. We're all King Arthurs. We're all, you know, we're all these people. We're all queens and kings, and we're all that. We're all that, and then some. You know?
In the journey of our life. True.
Yeah. Mhm.
Ismail, it's been wonderful talking to you. We're going to continue with this series, and I hope that the audience is really refreshed in their
Okay.
knowledge. Thank you so much, Ismail.
Thank you so much. This is a pleasure. I really enjoyed doing this after all these years. Meeting you virtually, you know, that's for sure. Very
Thank you.
nice.
Thank
Very good. All the best to you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.